Good afternoon, people. Welcome to today's webinar. Just to do a quick mic check, can somebody post in the chat and let me know if you can hear me nice and clear? Perfect. I see some thumbs up. Thank you. My name is Navdeep Chhina. I am Hub Cycling's Director of Campaign and Inclusion. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a non-native English speaker indigenous to Punjab state in the Himalayas in India. Hub Cycling is a non-profit charitable organization with a mission to get more people cycling more often. We accomplish this through advocacy, education, events, research, and consulting. Our webinar sponsors today are TransLink and Bunt and Associates. TransLink is Metro Vancouver's regional transportation authority. They are responsible for planning, managing, and funding a multimodal transportation system that includes public transit, of course, major roads, walking and cycling routes, and bridges. Bunt and Associates is a trusted transportation planning and engineering consultancy in Western Canada. For over 30 years, they have partnered with clients to deliver innovative, community-centered solutions that inspire and support active transportation choices. We are very grateful to both of them for making today's webinar possible. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that I am joining from the traditional, ancestral, unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. These lands have been inhabited and cared for by Coast Salish people for thousands of years before the arrival of European settlers. The recognition reminds us of the enduring connections that the Indigenous people have to this territory and acknowledges that these lands were never ceded or given up to the Queen or King of England. The term unceded acknowledges the dispossession of the land and the inherent rights that the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people hold to the territory. We recognize that this land has been profoundly shaped by colonial policies, including the residential school systems, an institution that separated children from their families, communities, language, and cultures. Next Tuesday, on September 30th, Hub Cycling will join many others to stand alongside Indigenous communities in marking the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, also known as Orange Shirt Day. We'll be taking part in community events to remember and honor survivors, to acknowledge those who never made it home, and to support everyone who continues to be affected by this legacy. Before we continue, a couple of housekeeping items. As you listen to the presentation, please use the chat function to ask us questions. We will give our presenters plenty of time at the end to answer the questions. And if we are unable to answer the questions, we will follow up with an email. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded and we will share it with public. Please refrain from sharing any personal or sensitive information in the chat. We have a very interesting presentation today, and we have amazing speakers lined up for you. They will be chatting on the topic of cycle highways and the benefits that cycle tourism can bring to British Columbians. As part of Hub Cycling's Ungap the Map initiative, we have been advocating for a safe, connected network of long-distance cycle routes, not only through Metro Vancouver, but throughout our province. We have also been pushing to make it easier for people to bring their bikes on transit, trains, ferries, and hoping to create a seamless travel option. Our hope is that BC will become a top destination for people from far and near, attracted by a safe and connected network and clear wayfinding that welcomes everyone on bicycles. As I was saying, we have incredible speakers with us today: Chief Aaron Pete, Louis Lalonde, and Dr. Becca Meyer. We are very lucky to have them share their expertise and experience with us today. Aaron Pete is the chief of Chavatal First Nation. Chavatal First Nation is nestled in the breathtaking mountain landscapes of Fraser Valley, about 440 kilometers east of Vancouver. Chief Pete is dedicated to connecting First Nations communities and inviting people of all backgrounds to explore the natural beauty of our province. He played a key role in developing the Coast to Cannon Trail near Hope, working with Chavatal First Nation to ensure the project reflects Indigenous values. By promoting respectful access to the land, Chief Pete is creating opportunities for tourism, cultural learning, and deeper connections to the land we all share. Louis Lalonde has been project manager at Vélo Québec Association since 2019. He first worked with the Vélo Summit Paktek movement, a, a support and certification program for communities, employers, and campuses. Since 2024, he has been actively involved in the development and improvement of Route Verte. In this role, he collaborates with local managers across Quebec, providing technical support to strengthen the network's quality, safety, and consistency. He also represents Velo Quebec in public consultation and advocacy efforts to promote active transportation across the province. Our third presenter today, Dr. Becca Meyer, is a planner at TransLink, where she leads the major bike network and urban center bikeway action plan. Her work is dedicated to developing safe, connected cycling infrastructure across Metro Vancouver, involving close coordination with local governments and regional partners to promote active transportation as a convenient travel mode. Becca holds a PhD in community and regional planning from UBC with a focus on cycling, infrastructure investment policies, safety, policy tourism, and equity in community engagement. Additionally, Becca hosts the Dense City podcast, where she translates academic research one article at a time. In their recent podcast, they talked about what would you tell the trees if they could talk. Very interesting podcast. I encourage you to give it a listen. We're going to start with Louis, who will give us a perspective from outside of our province. Then we will hear from Chief Pete, and we will end with Dr. Myers, who will give us a bit more of the local context as this topic relates to Metro Vancouver transit system. And I'm going to pass it on to you, Louis.
Thank you, Navdeep. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And Navdeep, if you can just let me know that you can actually see my screen.
It looks
please.
fantastic, and I can hear you fantastic.
All right, thank you. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm truly honored to be amongst you today. So, as mentioned, I'm going to discuss the Route Verte, its history, how it works, and the benefits associated with it. So just quickly, I wanted to touch on who Velo Québec is. Some of you might not know us. That's perfectly fine. So yes, we are mandated by the Ministry of Transportation of Quebec to coordinate the Route Verte, but we are many other things. We're also an association deploying various programs, advocating for cyclist rights. We're an editor. We're behind cycling events such as the Go Bike Festival here in Montreal. And we are also a travel agency for cyclists. So we do a lot of things. First of all, for the Route Verte and its history, this year we are entering its 30th anniversary. So the Route Verte is 30 years old now. But the idea came from the 80s from people way before me who were inspired by the Eurovelo cycling network in Europe and came to the Prime Minister of Quebec back then with this idea of a trans-Quebec cycling route. In '95, the government said, let's go, let's do this project. And since then, we've been coordinating the development of the Route Verte. You have here an old map, the idea of the Route Verte back then. So today, well, it looks like this in numbers. So we're at 5,400 kilometers, and we're connecting over 35% of municipality in the province. In terms of, if I give you a map, well, you can see it here. We're even going beyond what we've wanted to back 30 years ago. You can denote here that there are still certain segments in red. We still have work to do. We still have connections to make. Sometimes it involves retrofitting certain infrastructure. It's not always that simple, but we're still trying to improve our network. What you see in dashed line as well is current projected expansion. So we are still trying to expand our network to connect even more municipalities, notably on the Côte-Nord and Gaspésie. And I wanted to also share this map with you just to make clear that the Route Verte is not completely off-road. We have 38% of our network that is off-road and 62% that is visually separated. That means through markings, paved shoulders. Why is that? Because in certain contexts, notably in more rural regions, there are not a lot of routes option. That doesn't mean that we're not still working on it to make sure that it's closer to a AAA standard for it to be more accessible for everyone. But in the beginning, we had to start somewhere, and we're still trying to improve it, as I will show you in later slides. To give you an idea of how it works, the Route Verte itself, as I said earlier, we're mandated by the Ministry of Transportation here to coordinate the Route Verte, but we are working with many local managers, over 200 of them, that are the ones implementing the infrastructures. They're the one maintaining it as well. So those are, it encompasses an array of municipalities, counties, corporations, even parks as well, and regional directions of the ministry. Our work is also overlooked by the Interministerial Committee of the Route Verte, which is composed of other ministries, as you can see here on the right of the slide. They serve an advisory role to what we're doing, to feed us with their respective expertise, but they're also here to endorse certain decisions, route changes, and we report to them twice a year, actually. So it's very much a collaborative effort from local managers to higher parts of the government as well. Another key element in regard of the Route Verte that I wanted to touch on was its funding. We have in Quebec, through the Ministry of Transportation, a provincial fund that's fully dedicated to the Route Verte, which involves 4 aspects, 4 pillars. There's money for development and expansion. As I mentioned, we're still developing it. There are still routes to be built. We have a pillar for improvement, yearly maintenance, and recently the ministry has developed a 4th pillar for emergency aid in cases, say, a natural disaster would erase a certain segment or destroy a certain segment of the Route Verte. There's immediate money accessible to implement a safe detour or to put temporary infrastructure. I wanted to make sure as well to mention the fact that this fund is not covering the whole costs of infrastructure. It goes up to 50% based on type costs. The rest of it needs to be put forward by local managers. So as I said, once again, it's a collaborative effort. Now focusing a bit more on what Vélo Québec is doing for the Route Verte, you can separate that in 3 aspects. The first one being the technical expertise. So we're here to support local managers. They can come to us for technical guidance notes. So whenever they want to improve the Route Verte or they're noting on the terrain a specific safety issue, we're there to help them, to guide them in order to have a certain consistency in the experience of cyclists on the Route Verte. We're also developing various technical resources on our website specifically for those managers, and we're working with, we've developed actually a framework called the Reference Qualité Route Verte that's freely accessible online, which is basically a document with guidelines in order to have a certain standard on the Route Verte as well, which explains why certain sections of the Route Verte are still considered development. We're not just waiting on the local managers to come to us. We are proactively trying to improve the Route Verte with what we've launched in 2018 called the Grand Chantier, which means the Great Construction Site, or something like that, where we are constantly reviewing infrastructure to ensure permanence, accessibility, and safety for cyclists on this provincial network. The second aspect that we're doing here is in regard of wayfinding. So Vélo Québec is covering everything in regard of wayfinding, from inventorying wayfinding signs, producing wayfinding plans, and acquiring and sending the signs as well. So we've been doing that since the beginning, and to this point, we've covered 92% of the Route Verte. So you might think that we're almost done. Well, not so fast, because there's always more to be done with needs in terms of maintenance or review of the wayfinding infrastructure, because as new infrastructure pops up, navigation can be more complex in certain regions, that more than it was, say, 10 years ago. So there's always stuff to be done. It's something that we have to do continuously. So unfortunately, it won't be one and done. The third aspect is in regard of our counting operations. So every year, we cover over 120 sites with local managers. They're the one putting up the automated counters and doing manual counts as well. But they send us all of their data that we will go through for extrapolation, reconstruction, and this all accumulates with the production of an annual report where we will draw certain highlights and basically send back to all those local managers all the data that we've analyzed. We're also running a counter lending program for managers who don't have access to counting devices. So we try to really support our managers this way. Some of the key conclusions, for instance, that we had last year in our report was an increase of 6% of trips on the Route Verte, tendencies on weekdays that are going up as well, the increase of recreational use as well. And we've noticed, well, we're starting to have certain counters that are running year-long, especially in urban context. And we're trying, and we're starting to see more and more people cycle on the Route Verte, even during winter months, because, well, this presentation is focusing on tourism, but yeah, it can also be used for transportation purposes. Beyond counting, we are doing also periodic studies with the Transit Research Chair that's based in the Quebec's University in Montreal here to assess the impact of the Route Verte and its benefits, and in cycle tourism in general here in the province of Quebec. This latest edition in 2024, for instance, we're able to measure the attractiveness or the contribution of the Route Verte to make more attractive regions, make them more accessible. So 94% of surveyed cyclists, it's a survey of interception on the Route Verte that we've run for a few months. We were able to notice a certain reputation that the Route Verte benefits from, with 94% of surveyed cyclists who knew about it. We were also able to assess this point here that the presence of the Route Verte is a key element to attract people to visit certain regions. Key points being wayfinding infrastructure and panoramic trails and routes. So not only we're trying to make it safe, we're making it attractive by selecting the best routes to put the best aspects of all regions that are touched by the Route Verte. This can also be observed through other studies that we're doing. For instance, we have this study on cycling in general in the province that we've been running since '95, since we've launched the Route Verte. And we were able to assess a constant progression of Quebecers cycling during their vacation since '95. It has increased by 2.5 times. So the Route Verte, it's this kind of infrastructure, not completely, but can be one of the main reasons why people are cycling more and more, is because they have access to better infrastructure. So during holidays, well, the Route Verte plays a role for them to get on their bikes. This attractiveness is not only for locals, but for people coming from abroad. So we have people from outside of the province of Quebec that come visit us to ride specifically on the Route Verte. We have people from Ontario, obviously, but also people from the northeast of the United States. We're talking about 105,000 people every year that come cycle on the Route Verte. We also have people coming from France, obviously, because the language is a factor, but they want to visit us, they want to cycle the province. Well, the infrastructure is there as well. It's important to note as well that cyclists are not just passing by. They don't just cycle. They do a bunch of other stuff. 89% there of tourists practice another activity than cycling, is what we've found in our most recent survey. Obviously, restaurants, microbreweries, always popular with cyclists, but I'm not going to go through the whole list. But as you can see, people are visiting a region. They're not just cycling it. That means that cycling has a key role in attractiveness, but it is also a key component to make sure you offer in a region a through global touristic experience as well. This translates obviously in local and global economy benefits. We were able, working with a model coming from the Statistical Institute of Quebec with an assessment of the value and monetary value of cycle tourism. It's interesting to denote the number of jobs supported by this industry. We're talking here almost 6,500 jobs that are supported across the province. Direct public revenue on the last line, 145 millions in governmental revenue. That's money directly generated for our communities. So it's not marginal. It's something that truly has an impact for the regions. One of the main sector that's impacted by that is obviously the accommodation industry as well. 3 million overnight stays related to cycle tourism in 2024. And that's true not only for certain types of establishments, but it also ranges from people camping to going to bigger hotels, to inns, B&Bs, all sorts of accommodation. So it has an impact for a vast array of tourism actors. Finally, I wanted to just mention that I focused during my presentation on the infrastructure, its governance, and also data. But to promote cycle tourism and to offer a true cycling experience, well, you need to have a more holistic approach. Obviously, to have promotional videos, promotional campaigns is something that we're doing here at Vélo Québec is important for the regions, but also to have invest in education, not only for the population to know that how to cycle and to experience their regions on cycles, but also to work with people from the tourism industry in order to present to them how to properly welcome cyclists in their region, which is something that we're doing notably with our certification, Bienvenue Cycliste, welcome cyclists for accommodation establishments. You also need to have a roadmap. We did recently a year-long consultation called La Grande Traversée, which led to this plan for 2030 on how we want to develop cycle tourism. So it's, once again, I said it earlier, I mentioned that it was a collaborative effort to promote cycling. Well, it's still true to this day. So that's pretty much my time. Thank you for listening to me. You have my infos. You will have access to the presentation. I've included also a bunch of sources, so make sure to explore that. And with that, I'm passing it along to Chief Aaron Pete. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Chief, we can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
And you can see the presentation as well?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. So by way of introductions, thank you very much for having me today. My name is Chief Aaron Pete. I was recently elected in July. Our community is based in Hope, British Columbia, and we will be talking about our active transportation plan. Just to start, we were funded by the federal government for a $50,000 to do an active transportation plan. We worked closely with Urban Systems to do that. Since then, we've started implementing the plan. Alongside that, though, we are also doing a low carbon transportation plan, as well as an energy plan for our community. So by way of this presentation, I will be going through the history of our people in regards to where we were located and how active transportation fits into that. Today's challenges and the safety, the lack of access to services, and justice issues. Then we'll go into our active transportation plan, how that came about, how we gathered information. Then we'll go into the project specifically along Highway 7, and then talk about finding the right partners for some of this work. So for the history of our people, these are a few photos that we got through some research into our history that we have. So on the left-hand side, you'll see that black and white photo. That was called Fort Hope. It's from the 1860s. What's interesting about this is that if anybody's ever been to Hope, this is where a lot of the industrial commercial space is now. So there's a gas station, there's their fire hall. This has all been redeveloped, but this was our community very early on in the 1860s. And then that photo on the right also shows some of our communities as well. So that's an illustration of our potlatch ceremonies, which were, as many of you may know, outlawed. But that was an illustration of that work. And so we did live in this location in Hope, BC. We were displaced. We are about 15 minutes outside of Hope now, along Highway 7. And why that's relevant is because we selected this site because of its easy access to so many different things, and we were removed from that. So now, in order to access things like Save on Foods, to go into town, to do any of that stuff, we now need a car in order to get there because Lougheed Highway is a busy highway. So that's some of the changes we've seen recently. So here's just an illustration of our traditional territory and our community. This is the back of the reserve. So we would have walked this region for thousands and thousands of years. That's how we traveled. A lot of the reasons, and what I find really interesting about Halkla languages, but Indigenous languages in general, is they serve two different purposes. One is they often have moral stories, very similar to the Bible, that teach you how to live a good life. So there are stories about families fighting and how they resolve them. One of my favorites is the red cedar tree. So the red cedar tree came about because there was a generous man and he always gave back to his community. He always worked to make sure everybody had everything they needed. And as a result, where the generous man died, the red cedar tree grew. And so that's been a story that's been passed on for thousands of years. And what's interesting is that actually lines up with the biology. The red cedar tree is a unique cedar tree to our region. And so it's always interesting to hear those stories. Of course, it aligns quite nicely with the story of Jesus and that idea. So we have our own understanding of that within our region. But the main thing is we had the Ulican trails. We had lots of trails to walk along. And that's obviously been displaced by the amount of highways we have now and the amount of need for a car. So this is what today's challenges look like. This is Highway 7. This is where people have to get around. So on the left-hand side, you can see a biker coming up to a few different paths to have to pull up to. We have had members injured as a consequence of having to use these highways. The one on the right, which we'll talk about more, is where a lot of our members have to walk from the reserve all the way into town, and that can take hours. The city transit bus only runs twice a day right now, once in the morning and once in the evening. So here's just an illustration of where we are today. So research shows that Indigenous people are much more likely than non-Indigenous people to be hurt in collisions with motor vehicles. Research also shows that Indigenous communities receive less investments in transportation infrastructure, meaning they have fewer sidewalks, trails than non-Indigenous communities. And so I can tell you, in working with Indigenous Services Canada, there is no funding through them for any sidewalks, any pathways, any lighting, pieces like that within our reserves to keep people safe. So we have to apply to Infrastructure Canada, like any other municipality, in order to have those funds. And then on that right side, you'll see some of the things that we've seen arise. So there have been countless people who have been hit and killed along this highway. So we know from our community standpoint that this is a huge issue, that we need to have safe walking paths in order for them to be able to access. So that red dot is around where our band office is. So in order to get into town, you would have to go up all the way along past the FVRD airport, which is on the right side of the river, to get there. And so that would be about a little over an hour walk or a 15-minute drive. So when I joined, this was a huge concern, and people kept raising to me, like, what are we going to do about the safety of our members within our community? So we got that funding for $50,000 to do an active transportation plan, and it was key to get an understanding from the community's perspective, what does active transportation mean to us, and how do we best support our members? So we hosted several open houses, and we conducted a community survey to start to get an understanding of where they wanted to see trails, what areas they saw as dangerous, and what really prevents them from biking, walking, or using other active transportation modes throughout the community and to travel around. This was some of the feedback we had received from our community. So 65% supported a bridge crosswalk. So in one of the locations within our community, there's 2 reserves on either side of the #1 highway. It's a 4-lane highway in that location. And right now children have to cross that highway in order to catch the bus every morning. So that was identified as a top priority for our community. Next, we had the main challenges for walking and biking were the lack of trails or sidewalks, poor lighting, speed and noise of vehicles, and a general feeling of being unsafe. So as you can see below, the support for walking and biking pathways at SCAM to Hope was 92% of our community, and from Chihuahua IR4 to Hope was 88%. So very high numbers that we received feedback saying that they'd like to see that. We also found it really important. Our community has to do a lot of surveys. We just completed a comprehensive community plan to show them what we heard, so that they understand how their voice is being used. So we created these graphics and put them up after each survey so the members understood how their voice was being applied and what that feedback looked like across the community. So here's a better illustration of our community. Chihuahua First Nation, our main reserve, the one I'm at right now, is on that left-hand side. That green dot is actually almost exactly where I am right now. And so the commute all the way up the road to Hope is quite a trek. In that location, kind of where this small island is where our traditional site would have been. So you can kind of see there how far we were displaced from this location. Hope actually has 3 highways running through it. The other location where we're building BC housing units and new childcare centers is the SCAM IR2, and that's where we're making sure that communities members have more access, and we're working closely with the Ministry of Transportation because there's very narrow bridges along here that we need to look at expanding. So we took feedback on all of the locations for our community. People were able to point out where they thought trails would be good, where they might be challenging. The other piece, as I'll tie into, is this is also where the Experience the Fraser runs along. So right along here, this orange line that goes all the way up is where the Experience the Fraser goes. It currently stops in just before Agassiz Bridge. And so cyclists right now have a nice trail to run along throughout much of the Experience the Fraser trail, but it does end there, and then you're riding along the highway. So this is what we envisioned for our community, and graphics really helped our community start to understand where we could go. So right now there's an easement between the CN rail and the highway that's currently controlled by the Ministry of Transportation, and we've reached out to them and we're working with them right now to do a feasibility study on creating a trail that runs all along here. It definitely has the width along much of this route to have a trail. There are certain spots that get extremely narrow that we're going to have to work on how exactly we address those. But these visuals made the community very excited in understanding what the opportunity was. And this is also a good illustration for everybody here to show what we're kind of thinking if we're able to create this trail that cyclists would be able to utilize. So we've worked closely with TransCanada Trail because this runs along their route, and we've submitted several grants to them to work on that feasibility and design work. So there isn't a lot of pools of funding, as many of you might know, in terms of active transportation, and so finding support to do some of that early design work is really important because the Ministry of Transportation is not have not shown a lot of eagerness to fund those types of things. They're interested in the overall project. So TransCanada Trail has really supported us in kind of starting to wrap around that vision so that we can take that to the Ministry of Transportation to work on. So this is the Experience the Fraser. Some of you may be familiar with it. So it runs all the way through Metro Vancouver, all the way along the Fraser River, and then as mentioned, it does kind of stop off right here, just at the end of Chilliwack where you see that D, and so all the way through B and A is where it is currently undeveloped. And so A is within our Chihuahua traditional territory, and so the vision along this east portal is to have that trail developed. This is just an example of some of the feasibility work we're doing. So as you can see, some of the challenges is that we don't have a lot of space in certain narrow spots. And so the idea is to look at how can we expand that? And that's some of the work TransCanada Trail is helping fund, so that engineers can look at how can we expand the multi-use pathway to support. And so we can bring solutions to funders like the Ministry of Transportation and others, rather than saying, hey, we have this problem here. We've had some tremendous partners. These are just a few of them, and this is really where I bring the recommendation to build a network of partners. So Enbridge has funded us for $30,000 to do some work within our reserve to start to design trails. The District of Kent and Agassiz has received a copy of our active transportation plan. The Ministry of Transportation has been supportive of the work we're doing and is very interested in what vision our members want to bring to life. CP Rail has said they completely support the initiative and are interested in finding out how they can help. Fraser Valley Regional District was very interested in the work we were doing. They were doing a Fraser Valley Regional District-wide plan for active transportation, and so our plan dovetailed nicely and added a lot more detail to our section of that plan. The District of Hope has been supportive. They understand the challenges and the opportunity for tourism within our region. Urban Systems has helped make sure our community voices are heard and documenting that. And Destination BC is really key for us just because one of the main pieces is going to be tourism around this opportunity. And as the gentleman who spoke before described, tourism really brings in a lot of different opportunities for growing an economy. And that's what we're really interested in. How can we start to share our culture? Can we build a hotel? How can we support the other activities that might take place? But we're hoping that we can end up being the kind of final stop for the experience the Fraser trailhead and have an opportunity for tourists to be able to enjoy our region, learn more about it, and perhaps have some activities at the end. So that is my presentation on what Chihuahua First Nation is doing in regards to active transportation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Pete. We're gonna pass it along to Becca and learn more about what TransLink is doing.
Hello, everyone. Can you see the presentation and me talking?
Yes, Becca, we see the presentation and we can hear you.
Great. All right. So thanks so much, Chief Aaron, Pete, and Louis for giving such good presentations. I'm here to bring it to Metro Vancouver and to TransLink and talk about some of the work we've been doing on the Major Bikeway Network and Urban Center Bikeways Action Plan. And I am Becca Meyer. I am a planner on the streets planning team here at TransLink in the planning division. I'll give an overview of Access for Everyone, some of the plans for cycling within that document, talk about the action plan itself, and then some key components of the plan and co-benefits for tourism. So Access for Everyone really focuses on people-first streets and walking, biking, and rolling. This is TransLink's 10-year plan to transform to people-first streets, where active transportation is one of the most convenient choices for transportation. We see this all over the world. Being able to have a choice in cycling is very important for creating lively streets, urban centers, and really a thriving economy, community, and have people visit for tourism-related purposes as well. So within the plan, the goal is to complete up to 450 kilometers of the 850 kilometer total bikeway network. So you can see this plan, it's online. This is a vision. 850 kilometers throughout the region is a big goal. It's very aspirational. So we need to focus on, well, what's next? What can we do in the near term to get to that goal? Also, the bikeway networks are to be completed in all 26 urban centers. These are urban centers outlined by Metro Vancouver geographically, and the goal is to have not only connection between each urban center, but for each urban center to have a very lively, connected, safe bike network once you reach that neighborhood. This also, in the plan, there are new bike lockers, bike parkades, and counters to assess the impact of cycling in the region and of these investments. So what is the Major Bikeway Network? It is a regional network for active travel that connects these urban centers and communities across the region. It is comfortable for most. This is what TransLink and Hub, with their support, came up with to determine what infrastructure details and design details really make a bikeway comfortable. So it may not, comfortable for most is not just paint as a painted bikeway, but you can look online to see all the different design details as to what makes cycling comfortable. And then we can use that to categorize bikeways throughout the region and assess how we're doing on a regional scale and when it comes to connected, comfortable for most bikeways. Also, these bikeways are not only comfortable, but direct. So they connect to your destinations, they're cohesive and navigable. So you should be able to know where you're going when you're on the street. I'm sure many of us, if you've biked in the past, have gotten lost or you're not quite sure where to go. And then the bikeway may end or it spits you out onto a main thoroughfare and it's very stressful. So we want the bikeways to be navigable, so you're not missing out on the perfectly built cycling infrastructure that may be available to you just because there wasn't a sign to get there. And then lastly, we hope the major bikeway network supports a diversity of users, including those across all ages, abilities, genders, and background. You can take a look at this document, Moving Towards a Major Bikeway Network, online. This is already published. What's the status of this major bikeway network right now? I said 450 kilometers are to be completed. You can see in this map, all of the blue are these pieces that have, local governments throughout the region have done a very good job of completing these networks, but you can see there are still gaps. So this is something that we'd like to focus on, is filling in these gaps so you have a usable bikeway network that does become the most convenient form of transportation. What does it look like for urban center bikeways? Here you can see the map of each of the 26 urban centers within the region. There are 9 regional city centers, 17 municipal town centers, and only 3 of these urban centers now have a complete core network of cycling. Not that they're done, but that most destinations are you're able to get to these destinations via bike. So those are Vancouver Metro Core, Lonsdale, and in New Westminster. So what is TransLink's role in cycling throughout the region? We plan, manage, fund, and help coordinate with local governments across the region by providing funding through what's called our local government cost share program, things like bicycle infrastructure cost share program, walking infrastructure, transportation to transit, a whole bunch of acronym noodle soup. But by any means, this is funds that are going towards active transportation projects so that they are comfortable for most and well connected to transit and other destinations throughout the region. So now I'll focus a little bit more on the action plan. So we had the Moving Toward a Major Bikeway Network document, and now we're moving into the implementation phase. So what does this look like? It'll be published in spring 2026, so you can look forward to that publication. We're working with local governments to strategically prioritize corridors to better support an overall experience of cycling. So this is looking at the network and saying, okay, well, what is nearly there? What's feasible? What's connected? And what's connected to other urban centers, to major destinations, to areas with high cycling potential, to areas of equity need, parks, all of these information sources that make cycling really feasible and enjoyable. And then included in that plan is going to be further design and wayfinding standards, like I spoke about earlier, and also maintenance standards. So what does pavement look like on the cycling infrastructure? What about sweeping or snow removal? Even here in Metro Vancouver, that's sometimes an issue, other than, in Quebec, that might be more of an issue. And then what about the monitoring and impact of those investments? So with every dollar that TransLink makes towards active transportation in the region, every dollar that local governments make, the federal government, the provincial government, how much usage are we getting from that investment? What is the impact on safety? What is the ICBC data that we have readily available? What's the likelihood that people are getting into collisions with motor vehicles, with other pedestrians or cyclists? And then lastly, what is the experience of cycling? So we say comfortable for most. What about intercept surveys and asking people, how comfortable is this bikeway? And really ground truthing what we mean by comfort, by accessibility, by making sure that those designs match up with people's lived experience and ensuring that they can connect throughout the region in a very positive way. And then lastly, to be included in the plan are marketing and educational supports for encouraging that use. So not just a ribbon cutting, even though that's important, but getting education for kids cycling, for reaching your destination, for bike share, for all these things that are not just the hard infrastructure, but the soft infrastructure that you think about in supporting the use of the infrastructure. And as I said, this is delivered through TransLink's Bike Infrastructure Capital Cost Share Program, BICS, and MRNB, which is Major Road Network and Bike, and implemented by local governments and maintained. So how does this benefit tourism? And it really stems from benefiting communities. So first, I'll talk about the regional connectivity. Creating long, continuous cycling routes allow for more tourism trips and mobility options because you're allowing for more transportation. You're allowing for more access for people to know that things exist where they are going and that they can get there by bike, especially for areas that are historically underserved by active mobility options. And then second is the economic resilience and growth. So the community benefits of a major bikeway network and urban center bikeways action plan and its delivery really has the potential to increase sustainable transportation, access to jobs, even jobs in transportation and cycling, seeing little bike shops pop up along major bike network routes, and the economic development of that area along the route. And then third is showcasing local government identity. So all of those stories that exist by having a network close to the land where this path was created, the stories of a community along the way, of a local identity, and really building pride in that identity can be very impactful and a destination unto itself. So let's keep these wheels in motion. We're here in a webinar just talking from a PowerPoint, but really seeing this translated onto pavement, into plans, into investment dollars for plans like Access for Everyone will really get us to that ultimate goal of having sustainable mobility options, the most convenient and accessible form of transportation. So let's keep the wheels in motion together. Back to you, Nav.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. And thank you to all the speakers today, Louis, Chief Pete, and Becca, for sharing your insights and experiences with us. I invite all three of you to turn your video on, and we'll participate in some of the questions that people have been asking. All three of you have given Hub industry experts and so many policymakers on the call today a great deal to think about, and how we keep the wheels in motion, like Becca said, and how we keep them moving forward. I quickly want to recognize the incredible work of Hub Cycling's community manager, Kathy Aquina, who is here with me today for bringing this together, this amazing group of speakers and shaping today's webinar. I also want to once again acknowledge our sponsors who made this work possible, both TransLink and Bunt and Associates. I'm going to start with a question from Eric. Eric is asking this question to both Louis and to Becca. In British Columbia, currently, wheelchairs are legally not allowed in bike lanes. Hub Cycling has been advocating for motor vehicle reforms to change that. So a question for Louis is, do you track how many people use wheelchairs or even third or four-wheel mobility scooters on these routes? And then we'll pass it back to Becca if they can share with us whether TransLink consults with the users, mobility users, when they design lanes and maintain them.
Okay, yeah, first of all, great question. We historically weren't, but some of the data that I've shown you today comes from a study that we do every 5 years called the Cycling in Cycling in Québec report. And we are due for another version of it, and during the upcoming months, we will be asking such question in our new survey. So we are improving. It's not something that we were assessing in the past. It's something that we will. And quick mention on that, this report is also available in English. So sometime next year, we will have data accessible to you as well.
Thanks, Louis. Yeah, it's a good question, especially because multi-use paths are more popular every year, and understanding what the intersect is between people cycling and using other wheeled mobility devices, whether it be scooters, e-bikes, at varying speeds, and then also having pedestrians, some with vision and mobility impairments. So there's a whole bunch of people that you're putting into this very small space. So there's first the question of reallocating enough space from vehicles to active transportation so that you're not fighting over the small space left over. And then once that has happened, really talking about consulting with wheelchair and other mobility scooter users. We do this through our accessibility groups, but similar to Louis, the data that we have on how many scooters or wheelchair users are in the lanes, we don't have. So I wonder, like, we're starting some of our monitoring work and next steps for determining the impact. And there are some cameras and myovision counters versus eco counters. But it's unclear what can be detected on the infrastructure and what can't. So yeah, Louis, if you know, or if anyone else on the call knows of other detection for varying users, I'm happy to learn. So.
Thank you both for sharing those insights. As you can see from this question and answer, cycling is not just for able-bodied people. There are many people who use recumbent bikes and other ways, and it is quite often an accessibility device for them as well. Another question from Steve along the same lines is that the VI rail does not permit bikes on board. Louis, is Velo Quebec looking into the link between cycle tourism and rail travel? Before you answer that question, I also want to quickly add that we at Hub Cycling are looking at all of our partners, being BC Ferries, West Coast Express, which is managed by TransLink, to get more availability for people to easily access those places.
Absolutely. And I think it's truly important to measure this, because when we're talking about the industry of tourism, we're talking about 8.8% of GHG emissions on the planet. So most definitely we need to have better intermodality to have a better access to our regions. And one data that I haven't shared today, and maybe I should have, was that in our survey, yes, we have many people accessing all of our regions, but in 96% of cases, they got there with their personal car prior to cycle. So yes, there's indeed a lot of work to be done. We are here at Vélo Québec. We've been actively trying to reach out to Via Rail through letters, through the Federal Minister of Transportation. Our last letter might have gotten lost in the switch in between the ministers, but yeah, and it's getting to a point where we're a bit frustrated because we don't get an answer from Via Rail, hence the steps we're doing with the federal minister. But definitely, there's so much more to be done, especially if we want to give access to a more sustainable way to explore our own territory. Yes.
Thank you so much, and please count us in as partners if there's anything we can collaborate to make this happen. The question next I have is for Chief Pete, and the question is from David, but I'm going to build on that. I would love to know, how can we use opportunities like cycle highways to facilitate a meaningful reconciliation? And in addition to that, what David is asking is that, do you see trails through your community being open to use by non-band members? And do you see financial benefits in that as well, bringing in new communities and sharing your local culture with them?
Beautiful question. I would say I think the opportunity is probably for tourists and for First Nation communities at the same time, particularly in regards to signage and information on the history of mountains, waterways, all of those pieces. I find a lot of people are eager to learn about those types of things. That's, of course, something that First Nations want to focus on, and that tourist communities are also very interested in. So I think that can serve dual purposes. For trails, I can say that the one running along the number 7 will definitely be open to the public. The ones that run through our community, we don't plan to make public at this time. That's the direction we've received from our community. And I think part of that is probably just they've been waiting years for access to some of these walkways and pathways. So I think I imagine they want some opportunity to enjoy that after 50 years of not having access themselves to enjoy that. But I think over time, there will be a comfort level that will be built and it will likely become more and more connected over time.
Thank you so much, Chief. I'm going to go back and I have a question, another accessibility related question from Dorothy. This is for Louis. They are a young senior with a disability and can no longer ride a regular bike. They don't have a car and they ride an electric bike. What are some of the public transit options that are available in Quebec? I am assuming they are thinking of a multimodal trip where they can access transit and then continue on their bikes.
That is a very good question. And yeah, we still have a lot to do here in the province, I think. Just focusing here in Montreal, e-bikes aren't allowed on the metro, the subway. So that is an issue. I don't have a super interesting answer for you because we have more to do in this matter. We have to do so much more, and I'm looking for a specific word here. Forget about it. I hear you, and something that we are pushing as well, because we're aware that intermodality is not only something that's good for cyclists, it's good for everybody. People, cycling is a mobility aid. It needs to be recognized as such, and we're still pushing a bit for more than that we have right now.
That makes sense, and for us, we are equally passionate about making sure that cycling is equitably accessible to people of all ages, abilities, and even socioeconomic backgrounds. We're going to continue with Louis. This question is for Giovanna, and I'm assuming this is a former board member, Giovanna, who was very passionate about cycle highways during their term at Hub Cycling. And what they are asking is, what is the reasoning behind the name La Route Verte? Was there any reason
It's a
not to
good
give it a cycle
question.
highway?
Obviously, I was not there for the first brainstorm on the branding of the Route Verte, which means the green route. Sorry, I haven't translated it in the beginning. Maybe I should have. What I can say is that we're not the only one to referring to our network as a green route or a green trail. In about a month or so, I'm going to the state of New York for a similar presentation, and it's called the Greenways Conference. So I don't have a definitive answer for you because I was not there 30 years ago, but I think it expresses what we want to have with such a network. It's greener, it's panoramic, it's beautiful. If you've seen my opening slide, it's all luscious green. Yeah, I like the name. I don't have a definitive answer on why it's called like that, but I certainly like it. And it's recognizable. People know about the Route Verte here.
Sounds good. I'm going to quickly pass it on to Becca because I know TransLink has been doing some engagement on the same thing about what should be the name of cycle highways. Is that something TransLink has decided as the path forward, Becca?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was just responding to Eric's comments in the chat, so I can probably just verbally respond. But the name is so important, but also the name only serves to highlight local networks. So there is the Great Blue Heron Way, there is the Regional Greenways Network, there's Experience the Fraser, all of these networks. And then there are bikeways that we recognize, like Arbutus Greenway or rail trails. Like we verbally know this. So what is there to contribute as TransLink? We don't want to just come in and name everything again. That's not our role. Our role is to support in the region. So thinking about a name, the purpose is to leverage this name to then have a name that connects everyone. So what we're doing right now, also in collaboration with Hub, is doing some work for wayfinding to try and figure out how we connect all of these already named bikeways. And similar to other areas in the world, we would be numbering and serving to number the bikeways and corridors throughout the region. And then that way the number can be existing and navigable whilst also highlighting the name of the bikeway throughout the region. But this is in the works. You'll have to wait until spring 2026 to get the final action plan.
Fantastic. Maybe we can do some lottery or something for people to guess the name, and maybe they can win a prize.
That's a good idea.
The next question is something a couple people have asked, and to give some context to this question, for a very long time, our communities were built to move cars, and people had to rely on cars. And what they're asked is, given the prevalence and the possible overrepresentation of car ownership among small businesses and associations, is there any data sets that all three of you have that shows that when we make places more bicycle friendly, what impact it has on local businesses, especially if there were no routes previously and a new route was added to a neighborhood? So I'll start with Louis, and then perhaps Becca and Chief, we can add to.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to step out of the Route Verte for just a second here, but we have here in Montreal a recent infrastructure on the Saint-Denis Street called the Réseau Express Vélo, the Express cycling network there. And initially, store owners were a bit reluctant to this new infrastructure. But today they're fully supporting this infrastructure. And the key number here, I think, is commercial vacancy percentage. In 2019 on Saint-Denis Street, the vacancy was at 25%. 4 years later, in 2023, so way after the pandemic, this number lowered to something like 15%. This sort of data speaks for itself, I think. So commercial vacancy is a good way to measure the impact on businesses.
Yeah, I'd say similarly, we have what's called like environics data, and that tracks point of sale data along, you can do it within a region, along a certain corridor, and that's very tangible over time, longitudinal evidence of how much money is being spent in a given corridor. That data costs money, unfortunately, but that's one of the data sets that TransLink that we're planning to use to assess a corridor over time. And then there are also intercept surveys that you can do. I believe the city of Vancouver has done this along a few streets to get a sense of how people are arriving at their business and try and quell some of the myths of people need to arrive by car when really 80% of people are arriving via bike or transit. So maybe Aaron has some good data that he uses.
Chief Pete, do you have any insights you can share from your community as well? I think we don't have Chief Pete with us anymore. We'll ask them when they are able to join again. The next question I want to ask is perhaps both of you can answer it. All the municipalities are planning their own networks, and quite often there is a little bit of a disconnect in completing those routes. So David is asking this question to TransLink, but it'll be interesting to hear from Louis as well. Have you ever considered giving higher priority of connecting bike routes between municipalities and closing gaps? So yeah.
Yeah, obviously, the slide that I've showed you about sections that are still under development is exploring this question. Obviously, connecting communities is sort of it's a big part of the spirit of the Route Verte, and the fact that we have a dedicated fund for that truly helps. When it comes to prioritizing, it's difficult sometimes because you need to use certain momentums in certain municipalities or regions. We can focus a lot of our efforts on a segment or a portion of the Route Verte that is not moving. We don't have the support that it requires, and it's quite time consuming. But in the end, I think we need to focus efforts on where local people are actively supporting the project first, and eventually those segments. That doesn't mean that we're leaving them behind, but we need to preach by example. If we can show with our data and with neighboring communities which are benefiting from the network, those pieces will be more and more easy to connect. It's hard work. We're fighting to change the status quo. We're swimming against the tide here, but in the end, it has such a huge impact, collective and individual, for all sorts of need, transportation, tourism. We're fighting the good fight, people, is what I'm saying.
We're gonna wrap up, but before we wrap up, I'll give Louis an opportunity to share any last words of wisdom for what we should be doing in Metro Vancouver, and then I would love to hear a quick summary from Becca what TransLink is doing to make cycle tourism a viable solution in the future.
Wow, that's a big question. I just give you this piece of advice to the success of the Route Verte is a collaborative one. To acknowledge the fact that yes, Vélo Québec has been coordinating for over 30 years now, but the true heroes are the one truly behind infrastructures, and you need to identify those champions to make things move. For instance, here we're working on a network over 5,000 kilometers across the whole province. It would be an illusion to think that a bunch of people in an office in Montreal are all running the show. So yeah, to have people, to have local champions, to work with them, to hear them, to have regular contact with them is key to foster adhesion to the project.
Yeah, I love the inclusion of collaboration. It's something that in Metro Vancouver we do a lot, and that's a lot of TransLink's role is collaborating and supporting local governments throughout the region. And unless we do that, so thanks for your advice. If we don't do that, then you are left with a gap, which is really, I like to say, a boat in the middle of shark-infested water, right? Like we have local governments, and it behooves each and every one to get on board and to support and for TransLink to play this coordinating role is a big step. But it's kind of how I see this moving forward is really strengthening our role in the region, but strengthening active transportation as a viable option. And that's one thing that's going to help us in the future and get more people choosing sustainable modes of transportation and cycling to transit, taking longer trips, taking trips to the airport, having these destinations and these regional destinations feasibly accessible by bike will have some of the, I think, I'm biased, a large impact in our region. So yeah, thanks for everyone on this call trying to take a little bit of this information and everyone engaged in the comments and for all the co-presenters and really being part of this vision to connect via active transportation. So back to you now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. As we close, I would like to once again thank all our speakers today and also our sponsors, TransLink and Bunt and Associates, for making this conversation possible. I also want to let people know that we will be sharing this recording along with the resources from our presenters. I see it's still sunny back in Quebec, and we should let Louis go so that he can go enjoy a little bit of the sunshine there. If you're keen on getting involved in Hub's work, or if you enjoyed our webinar, we encourage you to support us by becoming a lifetime member. And if Cycle Highways is something you're passionate about, please reach out to me, shoot me a quick email. We have a working group, and we would love to have a diverse group of people a part of that working group, and so that we can collaborate. And next time Louis will come to us and ask us for insights about our cycle highways. Thank you again for joining us today, and we will log off. We'll stay online for a few minutes if people have any questions. Otherwise, enjoy your afternoon and your evening, Louis.
Thank you so much, Navdeep.
All right, thank you.